One of the main concerns of traditional epistemology has been to solve the problem first posed by David Hume. What reason do we have to make the assumption that the future will resemble the past? And this appears to be a very important assumption that we make. It seems to presuppose a lot of our activity in everyday life as well as in scientific research, and it certainly would be nice, perhaps, and very important to find a justification for making that assumption. But on this issue you've written, and I quote, "The Humean predicament is the human predicament." What do you have in mind here?
Yes, I don't think it can be done. A logical justification of the principle of induction is possible. But at the same time, nothing could be more fundamental to science and everyday life than induction. In its most primitive form, it governs animals generally, at least the higher ones, and it's the basis of habit formation. It's our innate standard of similarity, which underlies all our habit formation and expectation, namely expecting that a sensory experience similar by our lights, our similarity standards, to an earlier one will have a sequel similar to the sequel of the earlier one. There's the basic principle, as I think of it, of induction, and it's the basis of expectation. So we wouldn't be getting anywhere, even learning the beginnings of language, or learning how to get around, if we wouldn't have any conditioned responses if it weren't for that. So that's fundamental. And then from a naturalistic point of view, there is still the question, however, not of justification, except after the fact. Why is it that it works so well? Because we're certainly doing a fine job of, I mean, our expectations come out so much, and similarly for other animals, so much more successfully than random. This surely is to be explained by our standards of similarity, subjective similarity, which underlie this basic form of induction. And our standards of similarity in that sense, the things that we respond similarly to, have the same response to these presentations, similar in that sense. That standard of similarity is instilled in us by natural selection down the generations. Its survival value lies in the fact that it does correspond to the trends in nature, at least the trends in nature up to that time that have been affecting us, so that our expectations are fulfilled so much more often than not. That therefore is the ex post facto explanation of why induction works. It's not a justification of induction. That would be a vicious circle. But it explains why it's worked up to now. It gives us no assurance that it's going to go on working. There could be an abrupt change in the affairs of the world. But we expect it is going to go on working for the same reason. We're applying our same old pattern of expectation, expecting the past to be pretty much reproduced in the future.
So you see nothing awkward or embarrassing in the fact that this fundamental principle that we need to assume can't be justified. All that can be done is that we can explain why following it is successful, but we can't actually justify it. We can't provide any grounds for making that assumption.
No, and I think it's that's what I meant by Humean predicament being the human predicament. I think we have to settle for that, and it's of a piece with recognizing the fallibility of science generally.
Take an epistemological norm such as assume that the future will resemble the past, a principle we were talking about earlier. What cognitive judgments is that related to?
Well, now this is this is you might say a cognitive judgment that has been sustained by induction. In this case, it's an induction on inductions. We've had this long experience of having things turn out pretty much the way they turned out before. Therefore, we expect them to do so again. This is almost the same as the old fallacious effort to justify induction. Well, it doesn't justify induction, but I think it explains the judgment.
You said that one of the bases of your entire philosophy is your naturalism, your belief that science is the only road to knowledge. I wonder if you have some way of characterizing knowledge. The problem I'm concerned with is this, that if knowledge is itself defined as the products of science, then naturalism, the thesis of naturalism, turns into an empty stipulation. In saying, let me just clarify, in saying that science is the only way to knowledge, we would be saying that science is the only way to give us the products of science.
The only way
to give us the products of science. If knowledge is defined as whatever science produces.
I think it does come to pretty much that. What it excludes is revelation. I wouldn't say it excludes. I wouldn't say it excludes telepathy. That's just one of the fallible scientific findings, that telepathy is impossible. It doesn't work, that is to say, and maybe it does. But yes, I would agree with you that that natural intuitive way of putting naturalism is certainly very likely the exact way I've done it. Is rough and raises question. In the first place, the very notion of knowledge, I think, is a questionable notion. Knowledge has to be true according to usage, and science and our warranted beliefs generally are fallible. I think here again we have the situation where paradoxically the theory of knowledge has come up with the conclusion that there's no such thing as knowledge. But the game of science, it seems to me, is characterized. Its distinguishing feature is direct or indirect testability by observation.